Dzogchen Today podcast.
Hello, welcome to the Dzogchen Today podcast. Lamas Pemo, Lamas Kunsang. We are happy to have you here once again.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us.
So for the second episode of this series of 3, and this time we'll talk about retreat, something that it seems you know a little bit about. So for people who will not know you, I could simply say that you are a very long-term practitioner. You've done a traditional 3-year retreat, which we'll talk about. Then you've done another year of retreat, and then you went to live in the Himalayas, in a monastery, where you started working as a translator, but still continuing, of course, practicing and being in retreat. And then you came back in Europe, where you are still doing text, writing. You wrote a book about the history of the Karmapa. You're still continuing translating and, of course, practicing in retreat and integrating what you discover during retreat, let's say, in your daily life or in the rest of your activity. So we'll cover a bit of this in this episode. I think so. I hope so. Thanks again to be there with us.
Thank you.
But to start with, maybe we can ask something very simple. What is a spiritual retreat, actually? We are not that familiar to that.
Well, yes, in fact, in the West, we are more familiar with retirement than retreat. So, in fact, this is a spiritual retreat. It means that some people are deciding that they will go out of go out from the normal life, usual life, and go to a dedicated place to meditate. So it's a spiritual retreat. In fact, it's a meditative retreat. So this is an intensive period of time. So it can be for a few days, a few weeks, a few months, years, some for 10 years, 20 years. And then we can see finally that in the history of Buddhism on Dzogchen, well, we can see that when we read the biographies, all the masters went into retreat at some time during their life. Can be for 1 year, 2 years, or 10 years, or 20 years. Even the Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, also spent some time in retreat for 6 years in retreat. Even Padmasambhava for the Dzogchen, Bhimanamitra and others. So if it's important, if it was important for them, we can imagine it's also important for us. So what's the point? It's a very important point. It's in fact, retreat is not to escape the world, saying, well, the world is bad.
Terrible.
Yeah, it's terrible. I want to run away from the world. I don't want to hear about it at all. Just want to be quiet. So
Alone, by myself.
exactly, no thoughts. So it's not like that. Because if we go, let's say, we want to block the thoughts, it's impossible, absolutely impossible. So retreat, this is exactly the reverse. Is to face the world, but the world is our thoughts. So we go into these places saying that, okay, now we will try to see what is the root of suffering, of embarrassment, on everything. So that's why the retreat, in fact, is to dedicate our time to what is the most essential, the most important, which is the nature of mind. So that's something that we have to be prepared to do this retreat.
And so to do the retreat, you do it in some specific place. So in the previous episode, we've talked about pilgrimage and sacred places, but there are other places where we do practice meditation and contemplation. So can you tell a bit, give us examples about the places where you used to be and maybe today also the practitioners going to do the retreat?
So traditionally, in Tibet, for example, there were monasteries. So many people think all monks are in retreat or they are always meditating. But in fact, a monastery was like a school. You know, little monks came at very young ages and they learned how to write, Tibetan, it was like a school actually, because outside they had no school. So at the monastery they got education. They learned how to write, and they had to learn by heart lots of texts. From a very, very young age, they had to recite by heart hundreds of pages and long mantras and incredible memories. It's quite amazing when you listen to them. And their memory is so much better than our Westerners' memory, because we note everything. So they know everything by heart, and still like this. And so it's more like an education. And you also learn, rituals, to play instruments, but it's not really a place of retreat. It's not like in a Christian monastery, where you think, well, you go to a monastery, it will be very quiet in Christian monasteries. You can do a retreat there in your little cell and so on. And then people, when they come to Tibet, they say, oh, the monastery is so noisy. Everybody is playing music. It's just so much noise. Everybody is running around and fussing around. There's lots of things going on in these monasteries. So it's not a place of retreat. And that's why those who were really motivated for doing retreat, they would leave the monasteries. They would have to leave the monastery. And normally they didn't decide to just leave, but it was, the abbot or their master who told them, now you have had very good experiences, very good capacities for meditation. Now maybe you can go on a solitary retreat somewhere. So the less advanced ones, but still who have already a good idea of the nature of the mind, would stay near the monastery. So not far away, just, up the hill. So the monks of the monastery, or even the lay people, could go up and bring food. So it was easier for them to stay there for a long time, because they didn't need, to be in mendication or, lack food. But this was also good for them, because the master could go up and teach, because he was not far away. And it was a very quiet place, even if it was only 5 minutes away from the monastery, because Tibetans, they didn't go around to just have a nice walk on Sundays. Nobody walked around for fun. They were so busy working and physical work, they didn't need to do exercise like we Westerners do. So they just never came up. He was completely alone there, except for the cook who brought food or something, or the master who came up. So they didn't need to move very far away. But then there were other places in caves for the very advanced practitioners. Then the master would say, now go away, far away from the monastery, and there nobody would pass by except a few deer and, maybe other animals, rabbits and things, and birds, but nobody came, and so they had no food there. So you had to be a very good practitioner to be there, because you could only live on herbs, and you had nothing to eat there. And when they wanted to drink, they melted the snow, and there was nothing. Sometimes someone came by, a hunter or someone, and brought them something, but it was rare. So they stayed there in solitary retreat for many years. And then it was only in the 19th century that actually Chamgen Kongtrul Rinpoche, he made an institution out of retreat. He said it will be easier for the less advanced practitioners or for the old people to rest in the monastery or near the monastery, but in a frame that is really, with a program, food that is brought to them. They don't need to mendicate. And so it was easier for people who were old or less advanced. And there, the advantage was that the abbot would go there, teach, give the initiations. It was not far away. And they stayed in a group retreat, did 3 years and 3 months. It's the traditional 3 years, 3 months retreat. And they had a specific program that started very early in the morning and even the whole night. It goes on during the night. And they were really motivated because of the group enthusiasm of the group. So it was much easier actually, because they could not sleep. In the morning, everybody had to get up they couldn't make their personal little sleep. No, even if they are sick, they had to get up because they heard all the others play damaru and
and you had the gong in the morning for the session.
And the gong, and so even if someone is sick or tired, he has to get up. And then they do some rituals together every day as a group, which is very motivating. So this was actually a very good idea, because this idea was later on taken up by Rinpoches who have been teaching in the West. He said, let's do the same for the Westerners. Put them together, 10 people, and let's do the same program. The program was exactly the same hours, same program, but for Westerners. The conditions were a little bit different because the climate is so different. In the West it was humid or difficult in the cells, but in Tibet everything was dry, so it was quite easy to stay without heating or something like that. It was very good climate for that. In the West they had to adapt it a little bit. Nowadays it's easier for Western standards than it was at the beginning of the retreats. And well, so it has evolved, and there are also other kinds of possibilities later on.
Because in fact we are talking about hermitages in some caves or in some small huts, small homes. But in fact we could see also that there was another format which was with tents. So there was some encampment, like at the beginning of the 20th century. There was a great Dzogchen master. Very great. It was called Shakyashri. And he had an encampment, and all the monks were there. In fact, were in retreat in the tents. So each one has his own tent. He was doing his practice. But everything was programmed. So you had the gong in the morning. You had the gong for every session, because usually the day is let's say, cut into 4 parts, 4 sessions. Then they would go back to their tents. And the advantage of that they could move. In fact, they could move the hermitage, could move the camp to when it was warmer or for any reasons.
Like a wandering hermitage.
Yes, when it's like you have a group of hermits, of wandering hermits.
Wow. And then maybe we can go a little bit into the content of what was taught, what was practiced during this retreat actually, and was it maybe the same in all different lineages of Buddhism and Dzogchen?
So in Buddhism and Dzogchen you have so many practices, so many. So according to that, it can be different. But we can say that, especially from the 19th century, when Jamgon Kongtrul and other masters made it as an institution, there was a cursus that they had to follow with the beginning. You start with preliminaries and other practices. So especially in the Koigyu tradition, which is based on Mahamudra, the ultimate meditation of the Vajrayana, and especially for the Dzogchen, so with the Nyingma school, and there you have the Dzogchen program. So in this cursus, we can say, well, if it's Dzogchen, how can you say this is, you start with the preliminaries? But this is the genius idea of Padmasambhava during the 8th century is to make something which is gradual, but inside the path of the Dzogchen. So in fact, it's called the Nyingtik. So the essence of the heart essence. So in that program, so this is what you do in a retreat, for example, for 3 years. You start with the preliminaries, but it's the terminology, the presentation, in fact, is Dzogchen. Then you continue with the Guru Yoga, you continue with the Maha Yoga, Anu Yoga, and then you come to Adi Yoga. So of course you'd say, well, it means that Dzogchen is only at the end, but in fact it's not. From the very beginning, this is Dzogchen. Terminology Dzogchen, the teaching is Dzogchen, and so we can say in a way that this is a gradual Dzogchen, radical Dzogchen at the same time. On top of that, at the beginning of the retreat, from the Dzogchen master, there is the introduction, the nature of the mind. So it's really can say the Dzogchen cursus in a retreat.
Thanks. And maybe now we can ask ourselves, okay, I'm motivated, I want to do a retreat.
Good, very good.
But are there some things needed before? Are there some prerequisites, something we need to study, to know, to get prepared to before going on retreat?
There are, yes. The first thing is you have to have done a certain amount of study. That's why the Academy of Dzogchen today is so interesting for newcomers, because there's a gradual, moving, gradual progress in this academy, and you learn about the theoretical view. So you need some amount of study before you can actually start the path. Because otherwise, it's like many great masters say, it would mean that you climb up a mountain without eyes. It would be difficult. You don't even see the summit. So you need to see the goal. You have to know where you start and where you go. What's the goal? Otherwise, you will get confused during meditation. You will go to another tradition. You will say, well, that's too difficult. Oh, no, that's not for me. And this is very Western style. And Dharma shopping, they call it. And if you know the view, if you have studied the view, then you're very motivated because you think, oh, it's very clear. Everything is so logical, really logical. The path is so clear, it's motivating and inspiring. But as many Tibetan masters say, you should not do too much study. It's a little bit study is okay, so you get an idea of the theoretical view. But then you should start practicing quite quickly. One should not wait till one knows everything and then say, well, when I know everything, then I will go to retreat. Because then maybe you're too old and you can't sit anymore and have knee problems, or you die already, And so you can't. You have to do it quite quickly, they say, when you have some overview of the theoretical view. So this is one point, and the other point, very important point, is of course the correct motivation. So at the beginning there has to be a correct motivation, and the correct motivation will lead to the correct result at the end. And so the correct motivation means that you practice, with the wish to attain the great perfection for all beings, for the benefit of all beings. It's not, a path of personal development. It's not that you go there, yes, I want to be more, efficient in my work, or more pretty, or more, intelligent and more concentrated, more charismatic,
more
and
rich.
So on. Yes, more richer. Yes. So we want to work, but of course you can't deny it. If you start meditating, even if it's with wrong motivation, you will have results, but they won't be ultimate. You can get all kinds of results and experiences, but they won't be ultimate. They won't lead to the right goal. So the correct motivation is really, really the first point in every practice. One talks about it. It's the bodhicitta, actually. This, motivation to do it, of course, in order to gain, the great perfection yourself, and then help others to attain it as well. And the third thing is, of course, the link to the lineage. So the link to the lineage is the devotion, your aspirational devotion that carries you along the path all the time. Without this strong link to the masters of the lineage, you can't practice for a long time. And you won't be able to be someone steady and stable. It's impossible. All those in the past, Westerners who have not had the link and who did not have so much devotion, many gave up, or they came on paths that were not completely correct, or they gave up whenever it gets difficult, or whenever physical or mental problems manifest. They will say, well, too difficult, let's do another path. And if you get the inspiration of the devotion of the blessing, whenever there are difficulties arising, physical problems, illnesses, mental problems can surge up when you practice very intensely, and when you do lung breathing exercises, all the previous karma can come up. And then if you're not prepared and you don't have the blessing, it's a little bit difficult for some people, as the past has shown. So this is very important, this lineage link. Many Westerners don't want it. They say, no link, no master. It's not possible. In Dzogchen practice, you need the master, you need the link to the lineage. It's really what carries you, and so it's good. And the other thing is joy.
Joy is very important, You have to be very enthusiastic, people. We have to be enthusiastic. And this path is like if you feel, wow, I have to do the practice,
once again,
and it's the same practice. I do the same practice tomorrow, or then again the day after tomorrow. That won't do.
Getting boring.
So that's why, in fact, we have to be very enthusiastic. It means that enthusiastic effort. It's something that we are so happy to do it that we don't have to say, I have to do it. Say, I'm so happy to do it. If we see in the ordinary life, there are many things that we do, say, wow, we really want to do it. It should be the same with the practice. So if we see that we are very enthusiastic with the practice, it's just, easy in retreat, in fact. And and also we have to know ourselves. We have to be stable, in fact. That's very, very important.
Yeah, because we talked about the difficulty that can happen sometime in retreat, so you need to be stable before.
And also, there's one point, we were talking about joy. If someone has practiced at home, and he never feels joy, because it's just, difficult, once again the same thing, and he thinks, well, let's go to retreat in an isolated place, then I will be fine, joy will come. No, it's an illusion. If nothing happens at home, not much will happen in retreat. But it is true that some people, there are experiences of people who told us, at home it worked a little bit, but when they suddenly came away from all noise in their apartment, suddenly their concentration got much stronger. That's true. But doesn't mean that a great joy will come. If they were extremely depressed before, they won't be very joyful in retreat. But their concentration increased quite quickly in retreat. And when they continued in retreat, maybe sometime later joy would come.
And maybe there are better places than others to the retreat? Or we talked about pilgrimage, so sacred places in the previous podcast.
That's right.
Maybe to do it in these specific places can be more beneficial?
Exactly.
Yes, in fact, when you go to a place which is sacred, a place where some people have already meditated before, but it's important to we have a good feeling to be in these places. Yes, there is something where I feel comfortable to practice. But if we go to meditate in front of a nuclear power station or this kind of places, you after maybe yes, at the beginning it's not the best place to meditate. It's true.
At the beginning it's good to be in a quiet place, far away from the noise, because it really helps concentration. And then suddenly agitated people can become very calm.
Yeah, because today we are here, so now we are in France, in Europe. So you talked about how retreat has been done before and how it has been done in Tibet, sometimes close to monastery. It's not necessarily the case here. So would you have some advice on how to adapt the way how to make retreat here, how to do retreat? Maybe to be in group, or to be alone, or to be maybe to start with a very long retreat, because I'm very motivated, so I want to go all the year on retreat.
Yes, some people say, well, yeah, I want to go to retreat, and then I will be enlightened after 6 months, I'm sure, and then it doesn't happen. So that's why we have to go in a gradual way, progressive way, in fact. And then it's not like you are in a normal life, and then you stop everything, and now you said, I go for retreat for a long time. So the best thing is to go progressively. So it means to do some short retreat for a short period of time, and then the people will see after how is it after a few days and things like that. So kind of they can improve things. And also it's better at the beginning to do some group retreat. It's very motivating. You have others, they have the same joy
Yes.
as you.
Same discipline.
Same discipline.
It's very important, especially
Yes.
at the beginning, because you are obliged to get
Yes.
up even when you are very tired or sick. You have to keep the rhythm, and you can't sleep because everybody is, at the same time. And so you're sure to keep the discipline, which is very important. And also, you are stimulated because you do rituals together maybe, and you are stimulated by their spiritual fervor, by their devotion, and the others also serve you as a mirror. So if you do a retreat alone, you might think that you have no anger anymore, for example. Like there is this example, everybody knows, all Dzogchen Patrul Rinpoche, probably you know the story, who walked by a cave, and there was a retreatant there, had been there for many months, a Tibetan, and he was meditating. So Patrul Rinpoche went up to him and tried to test him. So he said, "What are you meditating on?" So the retreatant said proudly, "I am meditating on patience." So Patrul Rinpoche said, he wanted to provoke him. He said, came close to his ear and said, "You are meditating on patience." And he said, "I think the two of us, we are just hypocritical guys. We are just here to have a good time and get a rest." And so the retreatant sprang up and said, "What are you doing there, coming and disturb me? Leave me alone to practice patience." So Patrul Rinpoche immediately understood that, well, maybe he didn't really practice patience alone, because it's very difficult to practice patience alone if you have no mirror. So this is the kind of illusion of the solitary retreat. That's why the group retreat is really important, especially for many years at the beginning, because you see immediately if you have progressed or you have not progressed. Because the others immediately show you if you're getting proud about an experience, or if you are getting angry because there's something disturbs you in the retreat, or you have no patience. The others are sure there to show you without talking even, but you can see them, they are your mirrors. So it's really useful because you immediately see, do I really practice Lojong, training of the mind? Do I really practice patience? Do I really have less anger? Or do I still have anger, but if I'm alone, I can only be angry with myself? That also happens to some retreatants when they are on long retreats alone. They have nobody in the front, but they can get angry about themselves.
And if we maybe do not have the right condition to do retreat in groups, is it also possible to do it alone and maybe to think about, okay, I'm doing retreat at a specific moment in my lifetime, but then I have to go back in my daily life, daily activity, and maybe to test in the alternation between the retreat alone and your daily life, if precisely the retreat has brought something positive for you.
That's right.
Yes, in fact, it's good to alternate. That's why to go progressively, not going in retreat for the rest of your life. But to alternate is very important, because you go into retreat, then after that you go back to ordinary life. Then that will improve your practice in your ordinary life, and that will be a big change during the day. How we see the manifestations, how we react to the things on the vision. So that's very important to alternate this period of time. Sometime in retreat, sometime in ordinary life. And also for that question about is it good to do it? Not in a retreat place, but our homes. Well, in fact, we can say that if there is no choice, if there is no place for making a retreat, why we cannot wait? So any place is the best place of retreat if there is no choice. So anywhere can be a place of retreat.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing all your experience and this teaching about retreat. Do you have a last word for our audience, or maybe?
Oh yes, last word is always to keep joy in the practice.
Wow. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hope we'll have you again on this podcast. So for a third episode for sure, but maybe later on for deepening our understanding of what does a retreat mean and what benefit it can bring to all of us. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. So it's the end of the second episode of Dzogchen today, of this series. And I hope we will meet you again in another one, the last one, third one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
You can find more episodes on your website dzogchentoday.org. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review us on your favorite podcast app and share it with your friends. We will be pleased to receive your feedbacks on podcast@dzogchentoday.org.